Hey, what's up, guys? This is the Tranquil Living Uruguay podcast. I'm Vanessa, your host. Healthcare may be one of the most important topics for anyone interested or looking to move abroad or currently living abroad. It may be the exact reason why you want to live abroad. Understanding how healthcare works here in Uruguay, where I live, is key to feeling secure, especially if you are moving with a family or planning for long-term residency and retirement. So today I'm going to get real on all things health and medical care in Uruguay. This is going to be part 1 of 2 of navigating healthcare in Uruguay. In part 1, I will cover how health and medical system is set up and my personal experience with what I call the Tier 1 private health medical coverage and private emergency ambulatory services. Stay tuned for part 2, where I will cover the Tier 2 private medical coverage, which is also known here as a mutualista. So let's get into it. Before you start the residency process, have travel health insurance while you are physically here and or traveling in and out of Uruguay. Always as a precautionary backup. Once you're physically here in Uruguay, you can get health insurance locally with just your passport. It's not necessarily to have a cedula or an Uruguayan ID to sign up. However, if you plan on being in Uruguay long-term and getting residency, I think it will be a smoother process if you just hold out until you actually have your cedula ID in hand. And that way there's no having to go back to swap out your passport ID with your cedula ID in the system. It's just less paperwork and hassle out of your day. So we actually waited until we had our cedulas or Uruguayan IDs on hand in order to get health insurance, and everything worked out pretty smoothly. One good thing is that healthcare here is not nearly as complicated as it is in the US. It's very straightforward. So this is important. Unlike in the US, anyone can apply and sign up for health insurance, whatever type they choose. Every healthcare and insurance option is available to you as a local and foreigner alike. You can get health insurance as a local employee or via self-employment here, or as a non-employed status. Maybe you're a stay-at-home parent, or if you are a digital nomad with an employer overseas, outside of Uruguay, or if you're a retiree, you can get it here. If you have a job or if you are self-employed locally in Uruguay, you are not dictated by your employer of the limited options of healthcare options to choose from. You can choose any one you want. You don't need to go through an insurance broker either in order to get health insurance. If your Spanish is good enough, you can easily go directly to the membership services desk of the medical group of your choosing. It's also called afiliaciones, and you can get it set up on your own. If not, bring a friend to help translate. It's a quick 15-30-minute process to get set up maximum. So first, I'm going to go over the basic overview of healthcare options. Uruguay has 3 tiers of medical coverage. Tier 1 private medical coverage is premium coverage with monthly payments, and it's most similar to what you're used to in the US if you are American in terms of experience. It is a hospital group and location-specific membership plan, and the capital city, Montevideo, has the most options to choose from. Your options are more limited if you live outside of Montevideo. Tier 2 private medical coverage is called the mutualista here. It's an affordable monthly payment option for a hospital group that is location-specific, and it's a membership plan as well. Montevideo has the most options to choose from as well, but outside of Montevideo, there are more options, but it is limited. Just so you know, the majority of the local Uruguayans opt for Tier 2 mutualista option. Especially as an employee or being self-employed, they elect this option due to what they call FONASA benefit. In part 2, I will go into depth of what FONASA is. The third option is the public completely free healthcare for locals and residents. And here it's called ACE, which stands for Administración de los Servicios de Salud del Estado. If you want to have access to the free public healthcare here, you have to register and opt in for it, preferably after you've started the residency process and have your cedula or Uruguayan ID on hand. I don't have personal experience with the ACE public healthcare, so I can't speak to it personally. But from what I hear from locals, such as my next door neighbor, it's all right. They actually have good experiences with the quality of care. The one downside is long wait times to get an appointment to see a doctor and a specialist. And if you go the Asia public route, you have to understand that it's basically kind of like an old school way of medical care. I say this in the sense that my neighbor explaining was how she needed to go to the clinic in person to get a turno, which is like getting a number for a specific appointment day and time slot. And she was given that day and time slot with a number for the day, and she had to show up within that time frame. And they see you in the consultation after your number is called for the day. If you show up late or if you miss it, then you miss it and you have to wait until the next time slots are released. Again, you have to go back in person to get the number or turno, what they call it. So it's just a little bit more convoluted, complicated, more like active in-person physical going here and there type of thing just to get an appointment. All right. Now you have the picture of the overall 3 healthcare types. And here I'm going to dive deep onto tier 1 private health medical coverage. One big thing to note is where you decide to live in Uruguay plays a very important role in what medical insurance coverage you actually choose. And this is due to getting the full potential of access and services of your coverage. Obviously, in Montevideo is where you have the most options available to you. If you live outside of Montevideo, you can plan on traveling into the city, but personally, that is quite burdensome. Because the whole point of moving abroad is to make your life easier and tranquil. So you don't want to have to deal with extra gas money. I say if you are beyond an hour outside of the city, it's more of a hassle than anything. I live on the outskirts of Montevideo, about 35 to 45 minutes, depending on where in the city I'm going to. So I do travel into the city daily for school drop off and pick up during the week. So it wasn't burdensome for me to pick medical coverage in the city. My personal experience is with the Hospital Británico, also known as the British Hospital. I had this for the first few years of living in Uruguay. I have since changed to a tier 2 Mutualista for cost saving purposes, but I did keep my daughter on it for consistency purposes with her pediatrician. In Montevideo, there are numerous options for tier 1 private healthcare. Off the top of my head, I know of British Hospital, obviously, Sumum, Medicina Personalizada, also known as MP, and Blue Cross Blue Shield. These are the high-end premium options for healthcare here. They are the more luxury concierge type option in the sense that the facilities are very modern, top of line medical equipment, more likely to get English speaking doctors. And if not, there are like staff or interpreters on hand to help you with translations. For example, at the British Hospital, it is very posh. And in there, you can feel it with the staff from like their crisp uniforms, the way they carry themselves, and even the smell. There's like a distinct signature fragrance or scent that they use at the British Hospital across all of their buildings and facilities. It doesn't smell like you're in a hospital or a doctor's office at all. So I was actually really impressed with the British Hospital. In the US, I've lived in New Orleans, DC, Florida, California, all under Blue Cross Blue Shield when I had my job. And the British Hospital just blew me away. Like really, really nice, nicer than any other hospital I've been in the United States. And mind you, I want to caveat that I'm 37 years old, very healthy, never had any complications or surgeries or chronic diseases, thankfully. So I've just received basic care. I've had ultrasounds and x-rays, and at most I had like a quick outpatient little surgery with a plastic surgeon for like a mole removal. But other than that, that's all the services I've really had to use while I've been living here. The British Hospital main offices are located in Montevideo near Tres Cruces shopping. There's also another clinic in Carrasco on the other side of the city near the airport. And just recently as last year, they opened up a clinic in Punta del Este. So let's get into the nitty gritty details of the health coverage at British Hospital so you have a better picture of what to expect. The British hospital insurance plan is called Seguro Médico Hospital Scheme. So hospital scheme is what they call it. And cost-wise, this is the most expensive option in healthcare. The monthly payments vary by age. If you are under 18, we were quoted $157 per month for a child or a minor under 18. If you're between 30 to 39 years, we were quoted $238 per month, and between 40 to 49, $269 per month. So as you can see, it does go up incrementally depending on your age. For a family of 2 and 1 child, it does add up. Like for our family, it would have totaled $664 per month. But this is the highest quality, top tier healthcare that you can get here in Uruguay. All you pay is a monthly fee. There's no deductible. I repeat, no deductible. There is a $5 copay when you do go to appointments, and you just tell them to add it to your monthly payment, or you can pay it on the spot. They call this copay el ticket or tickets. So when I did have the ultrasounds or x-rays, it was just the copay that I had to pay for that day. I didn't have to pay anything else additional to my monthly premium. If you do get hospitalized under this coverage, they do offer private hospital rooms with meals. They don't have a pharmacy on site, and this is important to note because the tier 2 private healthcare options do have pharmacies on site, and they are very cheap and convenient to grab medicine on your way out of an appointment, for example, but not necessarily convenient if you are in a pinch and need to grab like ibuprofen on the go. You can just walk into a regular pharmacy out here in Uruguay for that, but it'll be more expensive than in the tier 2 private like hospital that you are at. British Hospital, in terms of pharmacies, British Hospital does have agreement with 3 local pharmacies called PharmaShop, San Roque, or El Túnel. Those are the 3 different pharmacy locations where they offer a 50% discount on medication to the members. For example, like if I needed to pick up ibuprofen kids or even sunscreen, because for some reason, sunscreen is like double, triple the price of what it is in the US. If you have a prescription, you can get the 50% off discount, and it's controlled by your cedula. You just have to provide your cedula number, and you'll already be in the system with the British Hospital, and they apply the 50% out discount to your medications. These pharmacies do offer delivery options if you prefer that, but obviously coordinated via the phone. And one like gripe that I have about Uruguay is that there's no drive-through pharmacies. That would be just so convenient if drive-through pharmacies were available, but that's not the case here. So you actually have to park, go in person, yada, yada, yada. Dental coverage is not included unless it's like a maxillofacial emergency surgery type situation, but they do provide discounts for cleanings and other routine dental work through like a partner medical group. It's called UCM, and this is also the group that provides ER ambulatory services for the British Hospital members. So no, this is only in Montevideo, or if you are out in Punta del Este near that other location for British Hospital. We do have health insurance. If you're ever in an emergency and need to call 911, you call the Emergencia Móvil, the ambulance services provided under your health insurance coverage. Like I said, the separate company from British Hospital is called UCM. So the ambulances have UCM on them, which is covered under your British Hospital medical coverage. If you call the basic 911 emergency number, the public health care ambulance is what comes, but you're not covered in the public health care because you've chosen private. You can't have both. What's really neat and common here in Uruguay is home health. So if you're sick with the flu and prefer to have a doctor come to you in a non-emergency situation, you can schedule a home or doctor visit. The caveat is you have to live within the limits of Montevideo to get these services from the British Hospital because that's where they're located. And this is so convenient. And honestly, coming from the US, I never heard of anyone just having like a doctor come to their house, like if they have the flu or to check them out. So if you don't want to deal with driving in, parking, and like the physical aspects of going to the doctor, this is a great option. It's also a very common thing here in Uruguay. For example, not with British Hospital, but with friends that we have, they had a surgery, and instead of doing like a 5 days of recovery in the hospital, like inpatient, they did 2 nights of recovery, and then they were able to go to the comforts of their own home, stay in their bed, and finish the rest of the recovery there, while daily nurses or doctors would come twice a day to administer medication or follow-up care. Travel insurance is offered as an add-on to your British Hospital medical coverage, but it's an additional $10 a month. And this type of coverage is called Asistencia al Viajero. I think it's worth getting it because if you live here, you most likely want to kind of travel and get to know South America. So you'll be traveling to Argentina, most likely, Brazil, Chile. And so it's just nice to have that option and to know that if anything happens outside of Uruguay, you will be covered. At British Hospital, getting appointments are easy. You can either schedule the appointment on the app or you can call in to make an appointment. I noticed that when I called in, it was better because they offered appointments that I couldn't necessarily see available on the app itself. So if I ever had to schedule an appointment with a specialist, I could usually get it within a couple of weeks normally, unless the doctors are like on a month-long vacation or something like that. It was pretty quick. At the Tier 1 private medical health coverage, the medical appointments and visits are exactly the same as you have experienced in the US. You walk in, there's a receptionist to greet you, they take your name, they ask if you want to pay the copay on the spot or add it to your account and charge your account to it. They validate parking if you use the parking garage, and you just sit in the nice waiting room and they call your name and say the office number for you to go in to see the doctor. I know this all sounds obvious, but these basic steps are navigated a bit differently at the Tier 2 private options, and it's another thing that separates them apart between Tier 2 and Tier 1. Tier 2 is more like European style of appointments, which was my experience when we lived in Spain. And like I said, in part 2, I'll go into more detail about the Tier 2 experience. In general, doctors at the British Hospital also work in Tier 2 and public hospitals for other shifts. So I think in general, like the care here, whether you are in a public hospital, Tier 2, Tier 1, the doctors are very well educated and they work across the different varying tiers of health coverage here. The advantage of the British Hospital or a Tier 1 private is that you get more personalized care. For example, my daughter's pediatrician gave me her direct personal phone number to contact her via WhatsApp on the very first day we met her. So I have direct access to our pediatrician at any time, 24/7. She's available for any questions or concerns that I may have. I don't have to call a separate office emergency line, leave a message, wait for someone to get back to me. And I don't always necessarily have to bring my daughter in as well because of this. And there have been multiple occasions where I had to reach out to her in a pinch. And for example, I sent her pictures of like this weird rash or like injury, anything that comes up that I'm not sure about. I can just send her pictures and videos, and she was able to tell me what it is or recommend some type of like medication or antibiotic to give my daughter, all without having to go to in person for a consultation. So this is an example of the concierge type services available through Tier 1. There's also the option of virtual consultation via telephone or video. This actually got popular during COVID times, and the doctor usually calls you at that time. In my experience, they don't always call on time, but they may have gotten tied up with like patients or delayed. But usually you do have a receptionist to kind of call you and let you know whether the doctor is delayed or not. My daughter is sick with a fever and I have to get a doctor's note for missing school. Then sometimes I'll just go in person if I happen to be in Montevideo. They do have a médico del día, which is like office hours for a doctor, usually at the end of the day between 5 to 8 p.m. If they are too busy, I've just gone straight to the ER and they see us there almost right away. Another example of concierge services is that usually after an ER visit, the following day I get a personal phone call from someone in customer service, like at the British hospital, asking how I, or, how I'm doing after the ER visit, how the healing's going, if we felt like we had great service. So it's just like a nice like checkup following an ER visit. One thing that's different here in Uruguay and very common is that doctor offices don't close at 3 p.m. Office hours usually go until 8 p.m. at night here, and that's to accommodate people who actually have normal 9 to 5 jobs, which is really nice. And if these premium qualities in healthcare are important to you and they fit your lifestyle and you're able to afford it, I say go for it. I've been quite pleased with it and it far exceeded my expectations. So let's talk about how you actually get this medical coverage. So afiliaciones is the name of the team that you want to talk to sign up. When you apply for medical coverage, you do have to fill out forms and complete an entry exam, or what they call an examen de ingreso. The British hospital was a little bit more detailed and involved with this examen de ingreso compared to the tier 2 mutualista. The forms that are required is a document of they get to fill out of your medical history and provide contact information and your ID information. Then you have to go in person and do a urine and blood test at their lab on site. These lab tests aren't required for kids. However, current vaccination certificates for kids are required. I brought our immunization records from the US that we had on hand. But if you are not up to date with vaccines, you are able to go and get vaccinations there for free. A carnet de salud, which is an up-to-date like pediatric checkup, was required. So since we weren't affiliated with our doctor yet in Uruguay, I didn't have it. So they asked that I bring my daughter in to get her weight and height measurements by the on-staff pediatric nurse. And that was it. Fun fact, all kids in Uruguay have an official pediatric medical record book that they are given where all the checkups are documented. And it also includes a physical aptitude certification that is updated consistently at each checkup and required by schools, clubs, gyms, summer camps, and all places where physical activity is required. And they're under the care of other adults. So we bring this book to each pediatric doctor's appointment. So the pediatrician signs off on the physical aptitude. If you are female, you do have to see a gynecologist and complete a PAP exam for the British hospital entry exam. That was a requirement. You are not charged for these tests or exams when you go to apply for this medical coverage, which is great. Then they review the results and let you know if you have been accepted. And once you are accepted, you are called a socio, which means you're officially a member of the British Hospital Group. So the pros for tier 1 medical coverage, I'd say, are most importantly, little to no wait times for specialists and ER visits, modern facilities and equipment, the most similar to what you're used to in the United States, English-speaking doctors on staff, or staff available on hand to help you translate. Concierge services like the ER follow-up calls or direct access to my pediatrician via her cell phone number. And, actually another positive, you don't actually have to have British hospital medical insurance coverage in order for them to treat you. You can kind of just show up on your own, which they call it particular, and get medical care. You do have to pay out of pocket up front, unless it's like emergency situation. I think like if it's just like an emergency visit or a doctor consultation, I think it's just $100 max. I'll have to verify that, but you're not looking at thousands of dollars like in the US. So another good thing is that there's no deductible. Another pro is that there are no deductibles. You just have a small like $5 copay for each visit. And you don't have to be employed. There's no requirement for being employed to get this. And overall, it's just really nice and pleasant experience, to be honest. The cons are that it's expensive. There's no pharmacy on site, but you do get discounts, from the other ones. If you are employed or self-employed in Uruguay, paying into the social security system, you qualify for what is FONASA, which I had mentioned earlier. In tier one medical coverage, only a percentage of the FONASA is covered, and you have to pay out of pocket monthly for the remaining balance of the monthly payment. And this FONASA is only if you pay into the social security system here in Uruguay, and I'll go into more details. So stay tuned for part 2 of navigating healthcare in Uruguay. I also want to add that I have private ER, like emergency ambulatory services, that I pay $15 a month per person in case we have some kind of accident or emergency at home. You call them just like you would 911, except they have their own, separate number, and they come immediately, much faster than calling a regular 911. With this service, they treat you at home. If you do need to go to the hospital, they will transport you to the ER or hospital of your medical service provider. I also have called them in the case where I or one of my family members got the flu really bad, and it was just like nearly impossible to like pull myself together to physically drive to Montevideo to go see the doctor. So the doctor came right away, checked me out, gave me a prescription and a doctor's note if I needed it for like work or my daughter's school. And so, having private like ambulatory services is common here, and people do use it like I did when I had the flu pretty consistently. Usually, this is included in your medical coverage if you live within the city limits, for example, the British Hospital of Montevideo. But again, I have to pay extra for this service because we live on the outskirts of Montevideo in a more rural area. And the tier one private medical coverage, we have didn't come to our area. So that's all for now. Thank you so much for listening or watching to part 1. If you like this episode, please like, follow, subscribe to the show with the channel, share your thoughts or questions in the comments because I read them all. And my goal of Tranquil Living Uruguay is to be your passport to Uruguay, a place I call a hidden gem south of the equator. So whether you're traveling through or if you're an aspiring expat, I'm sharing real life lived experiences from the perspective of an American Latina millennial expat. And remember, life abroad doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be tranquil. Cheers!